Welcome to the 2013 USA Ultimate College Championships presented by USA Ultimate. We come to you from Madison, Wisconsin, as number 4 Iowa takes on the top seed on the women's side in Oregon. This is the first women's semifinal matchup, and later this afternoon, we'll get to see Ohio State take on Carleton College. Glad to have you with us today. Mike Cousins joined by two-time Wake Forest Ultimate captain Evan Lepler. Great play to get here to the semifinals from these two teams, but believe it or not, they haven't played one another this year.
No, it's rare if two teams of this caliber haven't seen each other in a season. They did see each other last year with Oregon beating Iowa on Universe Point in the quarterfinals. It's going to be interesting to see how the two teams match up. Oregon's had a stifling zone all weekend. That's been one of the bases of their success. If they don't have success with it early against a team they haven't seen before, do they stay with it or do they mix it up?
For Iowa, Saucy Nancy, one of their top players we're going to keep an eye on is Chelsea Tuig.
Yeah, it's rare to see a 28-year-old college ultimate player, but that's what you got with Chelsea Tuig. She's a graduate student in the dentistry school, but she's the quarterback of this Saucy Nancy offense, a really strong defender. She has a lot of challenges on hand trying to match up with this Fugue team. They're going to need more than just Tuig, but she's the leader.
And Oregon's going to need Bailey Zonheiser.
Yeah, well, she's the defensive leader, the Callahan nominee, but she's talked all weekend long. She doesn't have her sights set on the Player of the Year award. The team has their sights set on the national championship. She has great field sense, incredible instincts, and she's going to need to have them on par today.
The USA Ultimate College Championships are presented by US Sports Camps, the operators of Nike Sports Camps, who are now offering youth Nike Ultimate Camps across the country this summer.
We are incredibly excited about the growth of Ultimate. We are literally exploding all over the United States. SFIA, the industry group, just called us the fastest growing team sport in the United States. We're booming, and we're booming because we are now getting some great exposure, and the minute the kids start playing, they get totally hooked, totally addicted, and the parents love it because everything great about sport is fully baked into the sport of Ultimate.
Starting lineups for the lower seed, number 4 Iowa, Liza Miner, Audrey Erickson, JoJo Peterson, and Jen Nowak. The cutters, Chelsea Tuig, who we saw earlier, Becca Hickernell, and Anna Pritchard round out the handlers.
You can look for Hickernell to be the main offensive handler. She'll pick up the disc. She's one of the captains for Saucy Nancy.
And for Fugue, the top seed on the women's side, Alex Odie, Bethany Kaler, Morgan Zajon and Lily Hurd, their cutters. Kimber Coles, Ashley Young, and Sophie Darch, the handlers.
Oregon stacked. Sophie Darch, Bethany Kaler, Kimber Coles, names to watch on the offensive side of things. You see the record. They're 35-1. Their only loss all season was to British Columbia, and they avenged that loss in the quarterfinals. 15-4, they beat UBC.
Head coach of Iowa is Michael Lunn, who's in his 3rd season now with Saucy Nancy. Went to Iowa State, but he says the Ultimate community in Iowa is so tight-knit, he wanted to coach. They wanted him to coach, and so he's at the helm for Saucy Nancy. Over on the other side, Lou Burris, the head coach for Fugue.
Yeah, he called himself a Frisbee bum back in the day. A lot of great years for Sockeye, Seattle's club team, one of the great minds in the sport of Ultimate. And Iowa's a program that's really surged forward under the direction of Michael Lunn.
So here's some simple explanations for what you need to know for the semifinals and finals here in Ultimate. 7 players on each side. First team to 15 wins. Halftime doesn't come with a clock. First to 8.
Yeah, and as soon as a player touches the disc, it isn't a number of steps. They have to set a pivot foot as soon as they can. If they don't, traveling is called in the play stops. But it's self-officiated. There are observers who help to keep the game going. But a very spirited game, and these are two of the more spirited teams on the women's side.
So we are getting set for the opening pull. It'll be Fugue throwing downfield to Saucy Nancy. And the opening pull is off.
The wind is always a question mark. There was more wind at the quarterfinal fields than there is here. The stadium helps to protect it, and Oregon starts off man-to-man.
Quick movement downfield for Saucy Nancy. Looking toward that left end zone.
Looking for the hammer. Just out of the reach.
Long hammer downfield. As they went for Audrey Erickson, the senior tried to lay out for it, and so now Fugue with its first possession.
That's Zahnizer with a big backhand. Connects for about a 40-yard upfield throw.
Anna Almy pulls it in for Fugue. Now looks like we've got a pick.
Yeah, unlike basketball, you can't set picks in Ultimate. So if there is a pick, the play stops. The defender who was impeded from keeping up with the offensive player is allowed to catch up. That's what we had right there.
And a self-check back in restarts play. Evan, we saw the wind earlier today over at the semifinal locations. Here on the field, though, you can hear it today, but it's not quite as bad down on the field right here.
Yeah, up at the top of the press box, it's a crosswind coming toward the press box. So from the far side of the field to the near side of the field from what you're seeing, that was a great D by Chelsea Tuig on that far sideline. And now Iowa trying to hold serve in this first point of the game. One of the keys for Michael Lunn was not falling behind. This Oregon team is so deep and so stacked. Great hustle laying out, but just out of the reach.
Becca Hickernell going for that one. Michael Lunn says she's one of the glue girls on this team. And over her head, a good try for it, but just out of bounds.
Back to live action, another turnover as Oregon overshot the intended target. You know, this is a different feel for both of these teams. All the other games this weekend were at different fields. This is more a stadium setting, and it's a beautiful surface, but a different feel for the players to get used to, and we could have a long first couple points early in the game.
Tuig with the disc just over midfield for Saucy Nancy. There's a foul down right by the end zone. That one hung up there just a little bit longer.
Yeah, Molly Munson, the defender, she got up highest. Not a ton of contact there. The observer is going to be involved, and it looks like they're going to go to the observer. No foul.
The huck downfield was intended for Jen Nowak.
So basically, if the players can't decide the outcome of the play on their own with a contest or a no contest, either player can choose to go to the observer, and it's Oregon's disc. Here's Zahnizer again looking deep. And you can see the wind off the deflection. Having good rotation on the disc is so important. The wind is picking up coming across the field, especially on those high throws when it gets popped up in the air.
Our four observers here who are already playing a big role with the wind coming into play here on some hucks downfield. Keith Temple, Julie Morris, John Thibodeau, and Stephen Hubbard.
An Iowa player is down, not what Saucy Nancy wanted. You know,
So it's an injury timeout.
Yeah, both teams have had chances on this first point and really trying to get started the right way.
Well, this brings us to another point of the rules as well, is you can only substitute either after a score or on an injury timeout.
Yeah, players call injuries themselves. This is Tuig, and we'll see exactly what happened here. Got tangled up with her teammate. And Tuig is needing help, not putting much weight on that left ankle at all.
That was Anna Pritchard going up with Tuig. It looked like either quadricep to quadricep or knee to knee there on the collision.
You know, injuries are a part of the game. The best teams have depth to overcome injuries. But, you know, on the men's side, Wisconsin lost its Callahan nominee, and despite being the home team, they didn't get to the quarterfinals after losing Brian Hart early in the tournament.
Liza Miner near midfield for Iowa. She breaks the mark to get it closer toward the end zone. Tipped away and into the end zone.
Nothing more demoralizing as a defender than getting the D and giving it up anyway. They say to catch your Ds. Oregon didn't, and Iowa holds for the first point of the game. A dangerous flick, tons of traffic. The D made right there by Jessie Schaffner, who's one of the top young defenders on Oregon. Right place, right time, though. JoJo Peterson.
And Anna Pritchard pulling it in for Saucy Nancy to get up. Well, they were used to taking a lead. They went up 8-3 in their last game at the half against the University of Virginia.
Yeah, that was going to be a close game, or so we thought. It was 3-2 UVA early, but UVA could not hang on. 6 straight points for Iowa to take half, and they really pulled away late. Michael Lunn was really pleased with how his team played. You know, it's an early morning game and a quick turnaround. Iowa did win its pool, so they had a straight bye into the quarterfinals, whereas UVA had to play a pre-quarters game early evening last night. That's a really tough turnaround. And as we saw, all 4 teams that won their pools won their quarterfinal games. So we got the 4 pool winners, both the men's side and the women's side, in the semifinals today.
Saucy Nancy set for the pole. It's Becca Hickernell, the 23-year-old. Now just in front of the brick mark.
Sophie Darch with the disc. Little zone, now they're trying to call fire. They start in a zone for a couple throws, but it did not flummox Oregon at all. And a careless turnover. Or not, perhaps a foul called on the throw. No contest on the foul call. So when the offensive player calls a foul, Mike, the defensive player has a choice. They can either contest or not contest it, or they could go to the observer. That time, they didn't need the observer's help.
Back out toward the brick mark for Sophie Darch. And that falls onto the grass in the end zone, so a turnover by Fugue.
Fugue is not taking the easy throws right now. Their offense is predicated on getting defensive stops and seeking the fast break. And so far, they've been dangerous and overly aggressive with their hucks.
Given what we've seen with the wind here already and another turnover as Fugue gets it back, how do you feel like that strategy is going to play?
Well, it's tougher to huck with the wind. It's tougher to play with the wind. But a great interception by Darch and the score up line for Ashley Young, and Fugue's on the board. But they need turnovers to create offense. This is the ultimate team, no pun intended, where defense creates offense. And for Oregon, they're fueled by their defensive intensity. And they have been that way all season long. Now, in their first pull, they didn't come down in zone defense. I imagine we'll see it here as Lou Burris tries to show Iowa that zone for the first time.
And we saw there that Saucy Nancy was forcing flick to the forehand side, and it didn't pay off as Young was able to streak down the sideline and into the end zone.
What do you think of Lou Burris' hat?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a nice hat. And he dressed up for the semifinals. There's Michael Lunn, really good ultimate player for Iowa State and currently for the Madison club team. Oregon Fugue has really been the hot knife through the butter that's been their competition. Their closest game by far was against Minnesota. The Ninjas nearly took half, played really well, but still, when the depth became a factor late in the game, Oregon was too strong. And that's been the case for the Oregon women and the Oregon men. The teams from Eugene have not lost all weekend.
Tied at 1, Sophie Darch with the pole that hangs in the air for some time. And Saucy Nancy looking to take a lead.
Now here's the zone defense. They try to match up with the handlers. Really trying to create space.
An aggressive mark there from Anna Almy.
And it creates a turnover. Man principles to their zone. They do leave open gaps deep, but on a windy day, it's tough to hit those diagonal crossfield hammers. A very dangerous throw under normal circumstances, especially when the wind becomes a factor.
When you throw that hammer, the overhand throw, how does that change the movement of the disc?
Answer that question after this.
No jump disc because that's pushed out of bounds.
Out of bounds. Well, you know, the hammer's a tougher throw to catch. It's a tougher throw to control. It's not that common, and because it's thrown high in the air, that gives the wind a chance to create more havoc with it. She'll throw the cone away. Her pivot mark is right on the front corner of the end zone. This is Hickernell. Dangerous throw, nearly a Callahan. If Oregon had caught that, it would have counted as a goal. Great
Tipped
defense.
away, and a nice hand block there.
Sophie Darch got her hand in the handler cuts lane.
Going end zone, blocked away.
Molly Munson was looking deep, just not enough air on the backhand. And
Liza Miner swats it down.
Come back to live action. Another turnover, but it looks like there's a call. The observers will weigh in if and only if they're asked. And it didn't look like they were asked. No contest on the foul. Iowa keeps the disc.
Oh.
Now, I think Oregon's glad that's a little windy. But sometimes wind is considered an equalizer. That's going to be too far.
Hickernell's huck just a little bit too strong.
20.
Well,
So on the turnover there, that count starts for the other team to put the disc back into play.
yeah, we have a couple of the observers mic'd up, which is going to give us some great insight. Careless turnover there, but great insight into how the on-field discussions are arbitered and eventually determined. That's a big turnover in the red zone. Iowa needs to stick this in. Looks like they're going to create an isolation in the middle of the field. Sophie Darch defending for Oregon.
Liza Miner with the disc. Hickernell dumps it away. Back to Miner, and it's in for the score for Saucy Nancy. Audrey Erickson pulls it in, and Iowa's up 2-1.
Audrey Erickson considered one of Iowa's better defenders, but she's been injured, had a sprained ankle in regionals. They've used her more on the O-line. Great quickness in the isolation. That's just really tough to defend. And if the offensive team takes advantage of its chances, that's a play where a team like Saucy Nancy should score most of the time.
2-1 now. We've seen a lot of back and forth, a lot of turns already here in the early going of this game. Do you think it's because of aggressive play or because of the weather?
I think it's the weather, aggressive play, and the new circumstances. They're at a field that they haven't played before. You know, they got here early tossing the disc, but the quarterfinals at the other site didn't end until about 10:15 this morning, so they got over here. We're practicing, you know, just trying to get the lay of the land in the jet stream around 11 o'clock, about an hour before the game. All the favorites, Ohio State won its pool, upending the women's scorned of Iowa State. That OSU Carleton game is going to be fun later today as well. Oregon and Carleton have been the favorites all weekend long, and so far, really no reason to think that it won't be Fugue and Syzygy in the finals, and we could end up with the double Oregon-Carleton special. Their men's teams have looked really good too, but that's to be determined later tonight.
What we'll see this afternoon is, of course, Carleton coming in after a win over defending champion Washington, although not the favorite in their division this year.
Yeah, Washington won it all last year, defeating Oregon in the finals. Oregon feels like they should have won that game. They had great success against Elementum during the regular season and in the sectionals and in the regionals, and just couldn't get it done in Boulder during nationals. Washington, a strong team, but couldn't get past the quarterfinal round. They had a universe point win last night in the pre-quarters against Minnesota, one of the more exciting finishes of any game in the entire tournament. We should congratulate Coach Kyle Weisbrod, a former voice of Ultimate Frisbee. He did a tremendous job coaching the Washington women's team this year, and they'll be heard from again down the road for sure. So a timeout was called by Oregon. They're a little flummoxed. This is an important offensive point here for Fugue.
Fugue the pull.
Good to see her back on the field after she went down with the ankle. She's on the field for a deep point. Clearly she can run a little bit.
Hawk to the end zone, coming from Kaler, and out of the back.
Kaler with an excellent cut, a little too much on the throw. You know, so much of Ultimate is finding space in the zone and then just taking your chances.
That's one you'd like to see hang up there just a little bit more. Tough throw there to break the mark, but it does get Saucy Nancy off the goal line. Now Fugue, who has the disc right now, we mentioned she's 28 years old, a graduate student. That's one of the things about Ultimate too, is you have 5 years of eligibility.
5 years of eligibility. Some players do plan to stay 5 years to get all their Ultimate in, and Oregon ties it up. Bethany Kaler with a nice little knee punt spike.
And she breaks away to get to the far side, and nobody was going to catch up with her there.
Yeah, this is a simple break mark, throw to space. Over the top hammer. A very strong rotation on that throw. You can see it spinning rapidly. Good rotation on the disc creates stability. And while the hammer's typically tougher to catch, that's about as easy of a floating hammer as you'll get, with lots of space in the end zone for Fugue.
And you can tell too from the celebrations that the players have when they score. Of course, the Oregon men's team is in a whole nother league, I think, when it comes to celebrations. But they're, you know, it's not too fired up, but nothing won't fly either. It's a little bit in the middle because of the spirit of the game.
There are a lot of colorful characters in the Ultimate world. There's no doubt about that. You hear the pre-point cheers from sideline to sideline. Ultimate is a game of energy, intensity, but team chemistry and focus is so important as well. Both of these teams are incredibly mentally tough. I don't think either of these teams is going to be intimidated by the circumstances. With that said, this is the first time that Ultimate in the college level has been on ESPN, so nerves will be a little bit natural.
10.
Sophie Darch with the pull there for Fugue. And Saucy Nancy will try to break a 2-2 tie.
This is the zone for Oregon. They're matching up with the handlers, and the mids are mostly looking away from the disc to try to guard the cutters and poppers coming in. Finding space up the middle of the field, Iowa able to connect with Peterson. Oftentimes in a zone defense, the middle offensive players are called poppers, and this is a deep shot, and Iowa's back in front.
Well, 2 big catches on that possession for JoJo Peterson, the junior, who gives Saucy Nancy the 3-2 advantage.
Yeah. Peterson has been one of the steadier Saucy Nancy players all throughout the tournament, really all throughout the season. A good pivot, a nice low release backhand, and an easy catch. You know, the best Ultimate players have the best pivots. You don't need to be tall. You need to have that quickness back and forth. If you're a right-handed thrower, your left foot is your pivot foot. And for a flick, you're stepping out to your right. For a backhand, you're stepping across to your left. And the ability to have the wide wingspan and to go left to right with the disc, not taking steps, but just pivoting back and forth. You know, the best throwers are the ones who can get a quick fake, go the other way, because if you can get a reliable break throw, you're almost impossible to defend.
That's one of the difficulties when you're a marker, is getting up too close, and then you're in danger of being pivoted right around.
There's a fine line between being physical and also giving some space. Iowa, Saucy Nancy, their one loss in pool play, not a big deal. They had a victory, so they were able to relax a little bit. Texas beat them, but Iowa was resting most of its top players after a hard-fought win over Tufts. Tufts, a very strong team as well. gave Ohio State all it could handle, but the fever of Ohio State came out on top in the quarters, and they'll get Carleton later today.
And that was a game between Tufts and Ohio State that drew a very big crowd this morning.
It's one of the closest quarterfinals. It's right next to the UCF Dartmouth men's quarterfinal. Pain Train, one of the stories of the tournament for the men's side, but UCF hung on. Deep shot and a break.
Got it again, the score for Fugue, and it goes to Kimber Coles.
This point wasn't a break, it was an 0 point for Oregon, but it's gonna make Lou Burris happy. Excellent flow from Oregon. This is the kind of thing they practice all year long. Great timing on the cut. Back to Darch. And she has the flick huck all day long.
And that's from right near midfield.
Kimber Coles the score. Oregon has a lot of homegrown players, some who played Ultimate in high school, some who didn't. Many of them went to Oregon because of the Ultimate program, and this is their sixth straight year at Nationals. They won it all in 2010. 4 players from that 2010 team are still around here in 2013 to try to win it again.
Kimber Coles, one of those, along with Rachel Karpelowitz, Bailey Zonheiser, and Morgan Zajan. So locked at 3. Here's Saucy Nancy on the offensive possession.
Yeah, still on serve. Oregon zone defense. It was funny, Lou Burris didn't want to reveal too many details of the zone. In a basketball sense, it's almost like an amoeba, a combination. You match up a little bit, you play man in certain situations, but if we can get a wide shot from the end zone perhaps at some point, you can see the middle of the field, they're guarding areas, and if a player goes into that area, then they're trying to match up with them to deny them the disc. And a zone like this relies on having one truly great deep, and for Oregon, usually Molly Munson or Anna Almy. Almy back, the anchor of the deep in the zone right now.
A lot of swing passes. They get it to midfield for Anna Pritchard. Over top, Tuig being force flick, goes crossfield, end zone, and again, it's Peterson.
Tremendous crossfield flick over the reach of the traffic in the middle of the zone. Almy was sneaking over to the near side where Iowa had another player, and she could not recover in time. Peterson found the space, and that's just a tremendous throw. Crossfield with this win, right on target. It could not have been any more perfect, and that's Chelsea Tuig. You know, it's funny, Tuig was an undergrad at Madison, Wisconsin. Belladonna consistently one of the best teams on the women's side, and she never played for Belladonna. She was friends with some of the girls. I think by the end of her 4 years, she sort of regretted not playing. Tuig went to Spain, played some there. You see JoJo Peterson, she's been the scorer 3 out of the 4 goals so far for Saucy Nancy, but it's really an incredible story for Tuig, and she wants to continue it one more game to the finals tomorrow.
So Iowa with the 4-3 advantage. You mentioned the journey that she's taken to come to play for Saucy Nancy at Iowa. So many different Ultimate players, whether in the Open division or in the women's division, come from other sports that they played in high school or earlier.
Yeah, a lot of soccer players, a lot of runners, some basketball players. On the men's side, some of the more physical guys were football players, cornerbacks, or linebackers. You know, it's really a sport that people grow to love. Very
Deep puck
close.
falls short. Bethany Kaler looking end zone. And like you said earlier, it's not about whether you're 6'5" or you're 5'10". It's whether you can pivot, whether you can make those quick direction changes, and whether you can break your mark.
Yeah, you know, it's speed, it's quickness, it's the ability to have the throws. It's also an innate field sense. that you need to play the game for a little to learn, and some players get it after a few weeks, some players it takes a couple of years. When you play with the same group of girls or the same group of guys over and over again, you start to learn everyone else's strengths, and you don't even need a scripted offense to make it look scripted.
Foot block and a huck that was falling short anyway, going downfield across midfield, looking for Dana Demmer. Now Fugue going end zone again, and it looks like they're just going to keep trying that because it's worked sometimes and sometimes it hasn't.
Well, if it doesn't work, it enables them to set up their defense and almost as a punt that forces the other team to start on its goal line. And you know, sooner or later, Sophie Darch is too good of a thrower to keep sending those too far. She'll adjust a little bit, she'll make the necessary changes, put a little more float on it, and she'll start connecting. She's too good not to.
Just in and out of the hands there of Hickernell, the senior. Back to Fugue, down one.
See Tuig stumble a little bit. Looks like she's laboring on the ankle, but fighting through it.
Well, you know, at this point, despite the injury, with how far Saucy Nancy's gotten, she wants to be out on the field.
Wide open, is there enough float? That's the question. The wind took it. The crossed wind coming from the far side to the near side just completely obliterated that backhand. Oregon will take over.
So playing on what appears to be a football field today has been transformed for the sport of ultimate. 70 yards, 40 across in the end zones, 20 yards deep, which gives you plenty of room to maneuver back there.
It's about 13 yards narrower than a football field, but the end zone's 25 yards deep instead of 10. The end zones are spacious. The playing field proper, as it's called, 70 yards from front line of one end zone to the other. And the best throwers can throw it that 70, 80 yards pretty easily.
Ashley Young goes forehand up ahead for Kimber Coles. As Fugue looks to tie this game at 4.
Ooh, great bid.
Ashley Young looking for it, laying out, and you will see over the course of today and tomorrow some spectacular grabs.
They make a big deal about diving catches during a baseball game. Maybe it happens once a night or once every other night. You see a truly spectacular catch. One of the reasons I love Ultimate so much is because you see highlight reel diving layout grabs on a point-to-point basis. You can see a point with 6 or 7 great layouts, both on offense and on defense.
They're almost commonplace, but they're never unimpressive.
It's true. And it takes such a commitment to put your body on the line like that, a sacrifice to give your body up for the team. It makes such a difference, that extra space that you can get when you lay out. The difference often between winning and losing is so small, and if you give up your body for the layout, nearly a layout there for Darch.
Tuig with the flick finds Hickernell, and now gets it back along the far sideline.
Not great movement here from Iowa. The deep shot.
Close opportunity there as Hickernell went deep for Demmert.
Mike, there's a fine line between moving too much and not moving enough. Clearly this was an isolation shot for the deep throw, just a little out of reach. That would have been the first break of the game. Zajan able to hang on.
Now back the other way. Fugue going end zone, just falling short. Is a nice layout by Ashley Young again. They're looking for her deep.
And they're looking for her deep. She has the willingness to lay out. I'll tell you, you don't catch the disc, it hurts. Look at that. And yet she pops right up. Knowing how to lay out properly is so important as you grow and play elite level ultimate. Even if you do lay out properly, you can still get hurt.
So what is the best way to lay out to avoid injury, because over the last couple days, I've seen scars, I've seen grass stains, I've seen blood.
Yeah, well, it depends on who you ask. And at the end of a tournament, if you've laid out more than once, you will be a little bloody. That's sort of the Monday after a tournament feeling. You know, most college tournaments are Saturday, Sunday. These students, I remember walking to class on Monday morning. You had to budget the time. It took about 5-10 minutes longer to walk to class on the Monday after a tournament. You're in so much pain, but it's a great feeling at the same time because you know how hard you work for your teammates who are more than often your best friends.
Fugue to Erickson falls short. Back to Fugue now. They try and close a 1-score gap. Lofted up, and they're back 4-4.
You know, I'm not sure if Oregon's going to change its style a little bit, but they scored this point by not taking the deep shot, by working it up the field, taking the sure throw, and just a little short flip into the end zone, Darch directing traffic, and an easy score for Lily Hurd.
When you're one of the two trail observers,
A little push pass from the goal line to even things up. Each team has 2 timeouts a half. Oregon took one earlier. Iowa might be using one here. And more than adjusting strategy, this might be a timeout for Iowa to rest its best players. A big O-point coming up. Michael Lund talked about the importance of getting off to a good start, which they have. But now that they're in the thick of this game, they want to keep their star players fresh. And with 4 timeouts in a game, 2 per half, those timeouts are often used to preserve exactly what players you want to have on the field.
4-4, Iowa and Oregon here in the first women's semifinal. Things you need to know about Ultimate, 7-on-7. And the first to 8 gets us halftime. First to 15 is the winner. And a player has to pass the disc within 10 seconds. That's one thing, even standing on the sidelines, you don't necessarily always hear, is that count is coming from the marker.
Yeah, the marker has the stall count. They have to say stalling, 1, 2, 3. If they go too fast, it's the job of the thrower to declare a fast count. And in that instance, the marker has to drop 2 seconds in the count. If they don't, then it's a violation. Play stops and it goes back to 0. It's all part of the spirit of the game, the self-officiation. Sophie Darch with her 3rd assist of the game. She's been one of the leading passers this entire tournament. You know, one of the cool things about Ultimate, it's right at the front of the rule book. It's assumed that players won't try to intentionally violate the rules. So you don't really get flopping in Ultimate Frisbee, unlike soccer, unlike basketball. And it goes both ways. You know, there have been teams in the past that do try to take advantage of the game. But one thing, the proliferation and growth of Ultimate, more video, more media, more focus on a national and international landscape, it sort of put the burden on players. You know, if you're not playing the game clean, everybody's going to know it, and they're going to think of you in a different way. And people do care what other people think about them.
So now Iowa on the offense here in a 4-4 ball game, or should I say disc game, as we are to the midway point of half number 1.
Sometimes they call it flat ball.
I like that.
Saw a bunch of Oregon flat ball shirts. Nice floaty throw to space. Sonnheiser, their Callahan nominee. Callahan, the National Player of the Year award to be awarded later today.
Jump disc down to the ground. And back to Saucy Nancy. That hung up there a long time as they were looking downfield.
Yeah, a lot of traffic. Peterson for Iowa had the position. And it was Fontenot for Oregon who couldn't come over the top.
And that's in and out of the hands. So back-to-back turnovers looking downfield for Jen Nowak.
You see the observer counting the stall count back into play. That's to prevent teams from resting too much on a turn. Great diving layout catch there.
A lot of contact, but Jesse Schaffner brings down the disc. And here comes Fugue, tied at 4.
It's just man-to-man defense here from Iowa's Saucy Nancy. They're force and flick. Oregon right up the far side of the field. The wind took that inside-out flick, made it an outside in, and Zionizer knew it as soon as she left her hand. You can see the 4 orange shirts on the field. They're the observers. They wear orange unless University of Texas or perhaps your alma mater, Syracuse, is involved.
The Scooby-Doom team there at Syracuse.
That's right. And they're, overseeing the action. They do have the authority to call personal misconduct fouls, PMFs, or team misconduct fouls. TMFs, another big mistake there, uncharacteristic by Zionizer. That was the best chance for a break Oregon's had all day. But, the observers have done such a good job all weekend of keeping control of the game, trying to make it more spectator-friendly, and making calls and getting the action moving quickly. That's a great deep shot.
Peterson grabs it. And now Saucy Nancy converts for the score as Peterson finds Nowak.
A great huck downfield, one more throw to finish it. That's a deflating point for the Oregon Fugue team.
Because they could have scored right at the other end.
2 or 3 chances right on the goal line. Zionizer turfed a flick. The wind took another one. Saucy Nancy capitalizes. And so far Oregon's offense has not been as crisp as their coach Lou Burris would like it to be. When you catch a deep shot, you want to relax. You don't want to throw it too quickly. Oftentimes, the best receivers aren't the best throwers, so as soon as they catch it, they want to get the disc out of their hands, and they rush. You're in the red zone. You got 10 seconds, and every throw resets that stall count. The ability to take your time and capitalize gets the job done.
Weather certainly playing a factor here today.
Yeah.
Now, down on the field, we were down there 30 minutes before first pull. It's not quite as bad, of course, that flag a little bit higher. It's not quite as bad on the field, but we have seen it affect throws. Even simple dumps and pushes have been tough.
It's funny. Usually in tournaments, you think of the wind as going downfield. So you have downwind points and upwind points. We don't have that here. The crosswind is impacting every single throw, and it's basically even for both teams. Still on serve. Oregon has Alex Odie cutting downfield. She was open for a second, but they didn't have a lane to find her. Great flick to break the mark.
And a left-handed grab there, cutting cross field. Keeps it with Fugue as Hurd hangs on. She's already scored this afternoon. Bethany Kaler has been a great distributor. Dumping it off to Odie.
Foul called. No contest, it looks like. Fugue in the red zone.
Odie in along the sidelines and a nice tiptoe by Zajan for the score.
One of the most common basic cuts in the game of Ultimate. In the middle of the stack in the end zone, you make a straight line dash to the front corner. Hit that front cone. Good hustle on the layout from Audrey Erickson. She sprained her ankle earlier this year. That's got to hurt. Not the smoothest throw. There was a little floppiness on that disc. But Oregon able to come down with it right near the sideline to tie things up at 5.
That's where the fundamentals of the game, too, come to be so important. Rather than trying to make a one-handed catch there, Zajan goes for the clap catch, especially in a wobbly disc. That's going to help you out a lot.
It's the most common and perhaps one of the more annoying phrases in Ultimate, especially when you're not doing it well. But throws and catches. You win games, you win tournaments, you win championships with throws and catches. At this level, it seems really natural. But you still might have that fraction of a percent of the time where you make a mistake, where you take your eyes off the disc, you look downfield a little bit too early, and when that happens, that can be the difference between winning and losing.
Fugue has distributed the disc well so far here, tied at 5, and for Oregon, 5 different players have scored all of their goals.
It's a great stat and not all that surprising. You know, this Oregon team has a number of impact players. You know, we highlighted Zahnizer off the top, but whether it's Darch or Toki or Bovey or Odie, they're really deep, really strong. They had some injuries earlier this year and in past years, and they're a team that can overcome injuries too because of their depth.
Fugue across the middle finds Vandergrift just at midfield, and the 28-year-old gets it back, hucking deep into the end zone, and a one-handed grab by Nowak.
That's a championship caliber catch. Reaching over the shoulder. Michael Lunn, the coach of Saucy Nancy, might have taught her that. The timing is the most important thing. She reaches over, times her jump perfectly, and defensively, that's Bovey for Oregon. Just mistimed her jump a little bit. Having long arms in ultimate is nice too. The ability to reach over somebody's shoulder without fouling, because Bovey had position there.
And at that point, it looks like it's a race to a spot in the back of the end zone.
Yeah, 50-50 jump opportunity. Really impressed by the way Iowa has handled itself. You know, especially Fugue went down early. Clearly she's not 100%. How could she be? And yet Iowa has not played scared. They have not been intimidated. And we should reiterate, this is an Oregon team that did not have too many close games the past couple of days. They won their quarterfinal over British Columbia 15-4. They beat Wisconsin, the 2 seed in their pool, the host team, really easily on Friday. On the showcase field too, Wisconsin had a great crowd, Oregon dominated, and yet Iowa has had a pretty good weekend too. One of the big surprises here in Madison is that neither Wisconsin team made it to the quarters.
Great hand block there by Alex Averkamp. But Saucy Nancy gives it right back to Fugue, down a goal.
Let's see if Oregon takes their time to work it down the field. Darch wants the deep shot, she'll take it.
Going long, end zone, and another one-handed grab. Nice play by Vandergrift to pull it in.
Yeah, I like what Oregon did there. They didn't huck it immediately. They got the upfield throw. As someone who is a handler, that's a really comfortable throw to make. You get the flip back from the first downfield cut, you catch it with momentum, you step out to your right, and you put it to space. Good rotation, good float, and an easy one-handed grab for Fugue.
That's a tough play to look over your shoulder the whole time, go up, left-handed grab and pull that in. What we hear about players who start into the sport of ultimate, it'll take them, if they haven't played throughout their high school careers, maybe 3 years to really get to a solid level of competition. How long does it take to be able to perfect a grab like that?
You know, it's really about how much you practice. And if you practice every single day, you throw and catch for 5 hours a day, which some of these people do, you can get it pretty quick. But it does take a while to, you know, craft your overall game in the field sense and the instincts you need to time your cuts the right way.
4th assist there on the score by Sophie Darch.
Yeah, she's out of Padilla High School, one of the top high school programs in the country in Atlanta. So many of the nation's best players from the past 20 years have come out of Padilla. You hear somebody's out of Padilla and you just assume they're a stud.
Midfield, Nowak just gets it away. Right-handed grab there by Fugue.
Fugue showing good patience, taking the underneath.
Breaks the mark with the backhand, now gets it back.
Trying to trap line. Yelling no around the hammer. Well done.
What a grab once again, finding Nowak. You heard there the stall count was climbing, and she makes the difficult throw, the hammer to the end zone.
Yeah, not an easy throw.
going over the top. A strong mark from Zahnizer. And when she wasn't even paying attention, the throw comes over the top. Not an easy catch there.
You could almost see there, though, from reading Tuig's eyes, she found Nowak for her third goal of the afternoon. She wanted that and was waiting for the play to develop.
When you're the quarterback of your team's offense and you get the disc near the goal line, it's not an ego thing, but you want the pass that's going to score for your team. You know, you want the assist, and stats aren't really an important thing in Ultimate. But you know, as the quarterback of the team, there's nobody out there that you have more confidence in than yourself. So you're surveying to the right, you're surveying to the left. You may have the open dump, but sometimes you wait for that stall count to climb to 7 or 8, and that's when the opening occurs. This is a rarity in the women's tournament. There haven't been too many games that have been this tight with no multi-point leads through an entire half. Nice float.
And a real easy grab along the sideline, completely slipping away from the defense as Kimber Coles finds it.
Excellent throw to space, and we have a Universe point to take half. Every single point so far today has been scored in the end zone to our left. And that's just a nice throw. One of the great things about the Frisbee itself, the disc, is that you can throw it with such great velocity with rotation and touch to have it just float up there like a bubble. And you can reach up, snatch it, and celebrate.
Third goal of the afternoon now for Coles, the senior from Eugene.
The interesting design on the face paint.
It's Ducks themed. The wings.
If you say so.
Well, you know it's gotten intense now because Lou Burris has ditched the hat.
Yeah.
7-7, and so Saucy Nancy will have a chance to take the half 8-7 if they can convert on this possession.
He was barefoot pregame too, but he's put the shoes on. He was a really great player back in his heyday. Played for Sockeye. Described himself as a Frisbee bum. He worked making pizzas at Zeke's Pizza in Seattle. Spent some time working construction just to pay the bills while he played elite level Ultimate, one of the better players in the country.
I love the line from him. He says, I was digging holes and playing disc. He was just doing anything he could to make sure he could keep playing Ultimate.
Sounds like a fun life to me. More so the playing disc part, but you do anything you can to play disc. Great D there.
Saucy Nancy turns it over. Zahnizer along the sideline, gets it away back to midfield. Looking end zone, and it falls short.
Back-to-back turnovers. Here was the first one, and a great leaping grab from Schaffner, just a sophomore from Nashville, Tennessee. Not that tall, only 5'1", but she plays bigger than her size. She has the aerial game. She'll need to do it again here.
Hickernell with a huck that hangs. And a grab along the sideline.
Peterson again with a position.
She's been big for them in the end zone today. Forehand dump, gives it back to Tuig as Saucy Nancy looks to take us to the half here in Madison.
I believe Iowa has a timeout here that we may see them use if they get close to the goal line.
Hickernell, backhand, end zone, and it's Nowak.
If it's simultaneous possession, it goes to the offense.
She's already scored 3 times today.
They're both hanging on to the disc. I thought Iowa got there first, but the observers will confer.
I think it's absolutely a tie.
I think it goes to Iowa.
So it goes to Iowa?
Yep.
And it's a goal? All right. All right. So are you coming to us for ruling?
I am, yeah.
All right, our call, it was a tie, so it's a goal.
Iowa takes
Nowak's
half.
fourth. And Iowa, for its second straight game, takes half. That's where the observers play such a crucial role.
Yeah, well, it was a close play, a big play. We'll get another look at it. The observers don't, but I think they got it right. Let's see who touches the disc first. Really close in the rule book. Simultaneous possession goes to the offense. A great cross-field backhand. You know, a nice catch by Nowak, but the defensive play, just to get a hand on that disc wrapping around the body, really impressive. We got a thrilling semifinal brewing here, the first one of the day.
Nowak has scored the last 4 goals for Saucy Nancy, an 8-7 advantage at the break. Stay with us here in Madison. We'll look back at the first half. You don't want to miss any of the ultimate action here in Wisconsin.
Mail time, everyone. Vero, Kip, P-Cap, Carl. Ooh, another one for Vero. Carl again, Sophia, Exton, Ningo, and one for accounting.
Losing your touch, Ben.
I think to the first-time viewer who's watching Ultimate, to help the game make the most sense is to see it as a big game of keep away. You're trying to keep the disc away from the other team, catch it in the end zone for a goal. If for any reason you mess up, the other team gets a try going the other direction. That basic framework is our sport, and then surrounding it, of course, is all the strategy and tactics.
(8-7) the lead for Saucy Nancy here at the half. Back in Madison, Wisconsin, Mike Cousins along with two-time Wake Forest Ultimate captain Evan Lepler. Through that first half, we saw so many opportunities as Saucy Nancy has the 1-goal lead into the break, but no team was able to break serve.
Yeah, we're into the break, but there hasn't been a break of serve yet. Oregon had the most chances, and they left the most plays on the field. Bailey Zahnizer, a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes with the flick. Oregon had their shots. They're going to need to capitalize in the second half if they're going to win.
How about with the wind that we've had here this afternoon in Madison? A lot of deep hucks.
Yeah, and the wind seems like it's getting stronger as the afternoon progresses, which is going to be an interesting factor all afternoon. Iowa's played the more underneath game, picking their spots. Oregon has taken the deep shot, tried to punt and set up their zone if it hasn't worked. It's going to be interesting to see if the coaches make adjustments or they stay with a game plan.
How much of a factor do you feel that Oregon zone was? We heard so much about that coming into this game, not necessarily from Oregon themselves, but we did hear a lot that it would be a factor.
Yeah, and I think Iowa handled it well. You know, Hickernell and Fugue, they're veteran handlers, and they didn't force things, and they weren't overly flummoxed. And because of that, Iowa never looked out of control. You know, what Oregon zone tends to do is make teams play out of their element. They're more confused than they're used to being, so they get out of their natural comfort. Iowa's look comfortable out there. They haven't been intimidated by the top seed. They haven't played them all year. They're trying to beat them in the semifinals.
Second straight game now where Iowa takes half. It was 8-3 before this round against the University of Virginia. So if you're Oregon here, what are you talking about at halftime?
Well, Oregon's not used to playing from behind. I mean, that's just a fact. They only lost one game all year. Their quarterfinal wasn't close. So you can look at Iowa's tighter game at the start as maybe it prepared them better for the semifinal. In the second half, it's going to be a different game. It's two different games. It's basically on serve. The fact that Iowa has an 8-7 lead, well, they started with the disc. Oregon gets the disc to begin the second half. Will they take it slower underneath? I like their underneath game, but Sophie Darch has a bunch of great throws, and they do have targets to hit down the field.
Chelsea Fugue and Bailey Zonheiser were the two players we looked at before this game. How much of a factor do you feel that those two girls have had in the first half?
Well, you know, it was scary for Iowa when Fugue went down right at the top. She hurt her ankle, had to be helped off the field, one of the first points of the game, but she came back, and they're doing a nice job of handling her, not giving her too much responsibility defensively while still allowing her to make handler cuts, which her ankle is allowing her to do, and to be the quarterback. And she's trying to hit that deep shot when it's there, more of a 30 to 40-yard deep shot than some of Darch's throws, which have been 50, 60 yards on the fly.
Women's semifinal number 1 here this afternoon in Madison. Saucy Nancy with the 8-7 lead over Fugue. And so we will come back more here from Madison at the half with Saucy Nancy in front.
This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot.
I think that Oregon deserves the #1 ranking because we really put everything that we have into this season and into this team. Our whole hearts go into this, and we're so excited to be here and just hoping to bring home the ship and then
It's an 8-7 lead for Iowa over Oregon. Saucy Nancy leading Fugue here at the end of half number 1 for the second straight game. Iowa has taken half, and they are looking very good right now here through the first half of play.
Yeah, still, learning the conditions of this playing field, a different set of conditions with a more stadium field, and also being the focus of everything. But right on serve, I think both teams are probably feeling where they're good at the point that they're at.
So we'll take a look at the first half highlights here as Iowa really with some great finishes.
Yeah, well, that was a fortuitous bounce right there at the start of the game. This was one of the great cross-field throws to beat the zone. Anna Almy, the deep, got over just a second too late. And JoJo Peterson, who's probably been Saucy Nancy's top deep threat throughout this game, again, beating Fontenot down the line there. Jen Nowak has also had a say. She's got size, she's got speed, and she's got the reach.
How about for Oregon in their first half? They looked down long on the field a lot. They're a short finish, but some great throws as well.
Yeah, their deep game hasn't been hitting as much as they would like, but Bethany Kaler and Alex Odie, Sophie Darch so often the quarterback finding space. Kimber Coles as well has been one of Oregon's primary targets. It's such a deep team. They had 5 different scorers for their first 5 goals. This was probably my favorite point that Oregon played. They worked it up the line, found their handler near the goal line, and if Darch gets it 5 yards from the end zone, she's not going to make that mistake.
And this was our last score that took us to half. They had to go to the observers to get a decision.
Yeah, well, simultaneous possession went to the offense. They both had the disc at the same time. You don't have possession of the disc until the rotation stops. But it looked like they both did get it at the same time. That's what the observers saw. That's what the ruling was. In the first half, there was one team misconduct foul awarded, and it was given to Oregon for their head coach, Lou Burris, being on the field for too long. You get 2 warnings, and if you get a 3rd TMF, then there's a penalty, and it's a yardage penalty. You're usually pushed back deep into your own end zone if you're on offense, or the other team, if you're on defense, gets the disc much closer to your own goal with a better chance to score.
Well, Michael Lund very happy with his team right now. He wanted to win matchups, wanted to start well because he knew Oregon was a deep team. So far, they've relied on Nowak for the most part to win those matchups.
One thing we should mention, almost all of these coaches are unpaid and have full-time day jobs. Michael Lund, a database developer in Iowa City. Lou Burris, a middle school math teacher in Oregon. And yet, these guys, probably more than anybody, look forward to getting out of work so they can go play. And their play is coaching high-level elite college ultimate. And the ultimate goal is to be here on Sunday and eventually Monday at College Nationals on Memorial Day weekend.
You got to imagine that right now Iowa is riding pretty high after being eliminated in the quarterfinals the last 2 years by Fugue.
The funny thing is last year Iowa was so close to beating Oregon. They were up 14-12 in the second half. Came to 15 and they just couldn't put it away. A number of chances on the goal line. Does look like we're getting a little bit more of an upwind, downwind situation. You know, every single goal has been scored this way. You can tell just by the pull. We're tied.
Quick start as Alex Odie, the sophomore, hauls it in. Good disc movement there. Kimber Coles found her streaking across the end zone.
Yeah, patience there from the Oregon offense. The good flow, not forcing anything too early. Smooth backhand, nice pancake catch there. Put it to space. One thing about Fugue, this is their 6th straight year in nationals. They're not going to be overwhelmed by the situation. And they didn't think of themselves as being down at the half. We just happened to take half when they were down by 1, but they're neck and neck, right in the thick of where they want to be.
So 8-8 as Fugue gets the first goal here of the second half. Oregon and Iowa. Oregon came in with a win over the University of British Columbia. Iowa with a win over the University of Virginia, and later this afternoon, Ohio State and Carleton College.
Carleton, the 2 seed, with a few losses over the course of the season. Oregon only losing once all season long. They really dominated competition, had some tight games, but you know, they won basically every tournament they went to over the course of the spring season.
Oregon was so strong during the regular season, going 30-1.
Yeah, they won the President's Day invite. They won the Stanford invite. Rolled through their conference tournament. Regionals, too. They had a great final at regionals, just taking down Washington 11-10. Here at Nationals, their closest game has been 15-9.
We get a call of force out there. One foot did come down in bounds there as Novak went to make the catch.
You know, they took this rule out of the NFL. It used to be if he got pushed out of bounds, it could be a catch. Now defenders are taught to push guys out of bounds because in the NFL, you need to get both feet in bounds. In ultimate, it's just 1 foot, that first point of contact. And if you do get forced out, the observers can call it in bounds. They do have that leeway.
So on the injury stoppage, Saucy Nancy does make a substitution with Nowak being tended to along the sideline. Hickernell breaks the mark. Diving grab by Minor. Now she's being forced away. Tuig has already made some strong throws to pick up scores this afternoon for Iowa.
Great throw.
End zone, and it's Saucy Nancy with a 9-8 lead into the end zone for Vandergrift.
Vandergrift, a 23-year-old graduate student from Marshalltown, Iowa. That was a defensive miscommunication by Oregon. The mark was forcing backhand, and Vandergrift's defender was on the wrong side of her. That's about as easy of a score as you're going to get. The toughest part was the throw over the traffic, but the space in the end zone, plenty of room for Iowa to connect.
Evan, you and I have talked about this over the course of this weekend tournament, that it's so important. If one defender is forcing one way, everybody else has to be on the same page, because one break in the chain can cause a score like that.
Most teams force flick and then set it up the other way. Oregon, obviously the top seed coming in. Ohio State, Carleton coming up later. Iowa State could not get past Ohio State in its pool. Wisconsin fell to Oregon in its pool play, didn't even make the quarterfinals. Tufts and UVA both losing in the quarters. "20 teams arrive on Friday. They're in 4 pools of 5. You play everybody else in your pool one time. And after those 4 games, the top seed in each pool has the automatic berth into the quarterfinals. The 2 seed from a pool plays the 3 seed from another pool in the pre-quarters. So basically, after the pool play, you have a 12-team bracket that you get into if you finish in the top 3 in your pool.
Huck, end zone, hanging, and it's in for Morgan Zajan.
Zajan, an excellent read, and Peterson, I got to be honest, I thought she took a good route to the disc, but the wind lifted it up, carried it that extra distance. You'll see, I think we're going to find out that she feels that she has this lined up pretty good, and then all of a sudden, right over her head, and an easy grab and a spike.
Well, JoJo Peterson, who's been so big on the O side today for Iowa, if that doesn't curl back, she's probably able to knock it down.
Reading the disc, so important. And probably one of the skills that takes the longest to develop. You know, you can develop good throws. Field sense takes a while too, but the ability to read the disc in the wind and to know your own leaping ability and where you have to go to get to the high point to grab it.
So as Fugue ties the game, Sophie Darch, the junior from Atlanta, continues to play well. That's her 5th assist. The hat is back for Lou Burris. Maybe the only time he didn't have it on, the wind might have blown it off. It has been a factor today.
I like those green pants too. He looks like he's the coach of Oregon.
Konheiser the pull, and it levels its way back down. Fugue forcing backhand here on Tuig. She hucks one that doesn't quite hang as she might have liked it. Intended for Vandergrift, but a foul on the play.
Foul on the throw, back to the right, and it looks like the disc is coming back.
Discussion there between Bethany Kaler for Oregon and Chelsea Tuig for Iowa.
And they're smiling, so it doesn't look too confrontational. One of the things I love, again, about Ultimate is that in a semifinal game for the right to play in the national championship game.
Or you can come to me and I can rule.
If it's a turnover, does that? What's up?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, contested stall, turnover down there. Is that fine? All right.
You could go to him.
Because of the incompletion, and it would have been a turnover regardless, she's not going to contest the. She's not going to go to the observer. A contested stall, but the throw is a turnover, so it goes to Oregon. Gonna say one of the things I love most about Ultimate is the ability in a high-stakes game like this for people to not lose their respect for their opponent and to be able to have a chuckle in the midst of a really intense game and an intense point.
A turnover, so it goes back to Iowa. And to your point, this is a 9-9 game. Winner goes on to the finals. We heard every word of that conversation there. Never a raised voice.
Yeah, very leveled, very measured. Now coaches train their girls to remain calm and composed on the field. Foul called on the layout D.
And the pass intended for Kaler.
I think it was Pritchard who dove in there. This might go to the observer.
And they're going to say it is a foul. So Kaler gets the disc, and it's checked back in by Tue.
One other thing to keep in mind. It's 9-9, game to 15. Oregon looking for the first break. We may not get to 15. We're about 10, 11 minutes away from the soft cap going on.
One-handed grab, shot of the end zone by Kaler. She drew the foul and completes the score.
The first break of the game. And Fugue fueling off that energy. Great flick fake. Breaks the mark with a backhand up the sideline. Gotta love the enthusiasm. Bethany Kaler leaping up high to leave no doubt. Look how calm Lou Burris is. He knows that this thing is not over yet. But going back to the point, about 10 minutes from now, the soft cap is going to go on. When it does, after that point is over, they'll add 2 to the highest score. So let's say it's Oregon 11, Iowa 10 when that soft cap goes on. And we're in the middle of a point. If Oregon scores that point to go up 12-10, then it's game to 14. That's to prevent games, especially on a windy day when it's tougher to score, from going on forever. In a tournament, you'll play 4, 5, sometimes 6 games a day, and you can't have games lasting 2.5, 3 hours. Even though you might want to play that long, you got to play somebody else.
Be kind of tough to play in the dark, too.
It's been done. It has been done.
So Oregon by 1, a game to 15, unless, as Evan just described, we do hit that soft cap. Over the top and a falling down grab by Pritchard. She breaks mark, but it's just out of the hands of Vandergriff. And even on a driving tie by Peterson, goes back to Fugue. Huck downfield, one-on-one. And it falls to the turf. That was a big opportunity there for Fugue to have the first chance to go up by 2 here in this game.
Yeah, Liza Minor showing her speed defensively, outrunning the Oregon deep to the disc. Nice little air bounce backhand, and a foul called, I believe, on the mark. Sophie Darch, one of Oregon's top players. She's a junior. She wasn't around for the last time Oregon won the title back in 2010.
Hickernell goes cross field, and a turnover back to Fugue, a chance to make it a 2-goal contest.
Now the big difference between Iowa this year and last year, Oregon throws it away.
Fugue wants end zone, and Tilly Salter couldn't catch up with that disc.
The big difference between last year's Saucy Nancy team that lost to Oregon in the quarterfinals and this year, they're a little bit younger, perhaps not quite as experienced, but they do have more athleticism, which helps them match up with this Oregon team and its depth.
That hangs up, but not quite long enough along that far sideline. Erickson couldn't run it down. So it's Fugue again.
Oregon will get the disc on the sideline where it went out of bounds because it never came back in. If it came back in play, Oregon would have had it closer to its own end zone.
First toss, Tilly Salter. She couldn't run it down last time, but it gives Fugue the 2-score lead. Beg your pardon, Alex Odie hauls that one in.
And Alex Odie, just a sophomore from Boise, Idaho, timed that deep cut perfectly. And Oregon, for the first time today, leads by 2.
A 3-0 Fugue run.
JoJo Peterson beaten deep. Again, the timing of the throw and the cut, and an easy catch. 9-7, or 11-9, I should say.
Michael Lund's got to rally the troops now, the third-year head coach for Iowa, as they trail by 2 scores. Lou Burris readies his team for the pull.
Lou Burris is probably telling his team to think of it as a 0-0 game. They don't want to let the pedal off the accelerator.
Sennheiser's pull a brick.
Out of bounds, so Iowa will get it at midfield. But the out of bounds pull does give the defense a chance to set up.
And you'll see that sometimes, that the pull, it looks like, well, intentionally, not on that throw, but intentionally will go out of bounds.
Occasionally teams will embrace that strategy. Try to take away an aspect of the other team's game. Oftentimes it's the deep throw.
Pickernell sends it right between the hands of Tuig. The clap, and she couldn't pull it in. Big turnover there for Saucy Nancy, already down 2. Sennheiser distributes for Coles.
A lot of air under it, and it's not coming back. It was a nice design on the cut. A foul looked like it was called, and it may be coming back. The most dangerous time for an offensive player is just after they've released the disc. Because if they cut quickly, oftentimes the mark is watching where that disc went, and then they realize, oh no, the guy you're supposed to be marking already right past him. Here comes a timeout call.
Timeout taken by Oregon, leading by 2 here in the second half.
I think the different thing about coaching an ultimate athlete is it's much less dictatorial and much more democratic, in that it really is, I don't see myself as being in charge and telling them, you do this, 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 and this. It's much more of a process of me working with them in a partnership to help them achieve something great. And I see my role as laying out the path that these are the things that you need to do to be great. And then it's really up to them to make that decision whether or not they want to take those steps.
So we hear from head coach Lou Burris for Oregon. You played at Wake Forest for 4 years, 2 times a captain, never played with a coach. What do you make of the philosophy that he brings to the sidelines?
Well, you know, Lou Burris brings instant credibility, and he's absolutely right. He can only take his team so far. And when they practice, he's there some of the time, but he's not there all the time. And the captains are just as important as the coach in determining the motivation for the team. You know, they're the girls on the squad that everybody else looks up to and really wants to lay out their bodies on the line for.
Schaffner breaks the cup defense, and it leads directly to a goal for Fugue, now in front by 3. Out of the timeout there, it looked like they came out with a 4-person cup.
The 4th straight point for Oregon. They came out of the timeout exactly as you said, in the cup, and the over-the-top throw found the space. A great leaping catch by Ashley Young, and at that point, it's just executing a simple backhand. Zone is risky. because it puts the onus so often on the other team to make the mistake. If you're playing man-to-man defense, you're trying to dictate where that disc is going to go and prevent them from moving the disc. It's up to you to force them to make a mistake. The zone defense is often more conservative. On a windy day, it forces more short throws, but a team like Oregon has the over-the-top blade back flick and able to get it there.
So the number 1 seed Oregon now with a 3-score lead over Iowa, which came in as a number 4 seed into the tournament. Oregon getting to this game with a win over the University of British Columbia, and Iowa with a win over the University of Virginia, and now the pressure rests on Saucy Nancy.
And they need to regroup, and they don't have that much time. Oregon closing in 3 goals away. A 3-goal lead at this point in the game is substantial. The winner of this one gets the winner of Ohio State Fever and Carleton College Syzygy coming up not long after this first semifinal concludes. Carleton the favorite, but Ohio State has looked really, really good all tournament long behind Paige Soper and Cassie Swafford. They have some young players as well. Ohio State, a program on the rise. Carleton, an established program, one of the great ultimate factories in this game.
So it's a 3-score lead for Oregon over Iowa. The surprising part perhaps for Fugue is that on their side, Bailey Zonheiser has not been a very big factor in the game.
No, she hasn't. She's out there now on the defensive point. She made a few mistakes early with the flick on break opportunities. She did have the footsteps there on that defense, picking up the disc.
And now another long look, and it's dropped down by Morgan Zajan. She scores again, and it's Fugue growing the lead.
It's an avalanche of momentum for Oregon right now. They've got their mojo working. A quick turn, a quick center, and a put to space. And Zajan with the easy catch to finish it off.
Remember, it was Schaffner on the last point who was fouled, and it was her putting the disc back into play that led to his score, and that's a beautiful throw between 2 defenders.
Perfect throw to space. Zajan had a couple of steps on Erickson and Hickernell.
So Oregon in front, 13-9. They have dominated the scoring here in the second half. Kimber Coles doing some scoring, but really Sophie Darch, a great distributor.
Yeah, the defense is ratcheted up, and Oregon has done a much better job capitalizing on its opportunities. Being patient, take the deep shot when it's there. Oregon was down 9-8. They've scored 5 straight, and Fugue just 2 points away from Memorial Day Monday at Nationals.
Well, Fugue said before this game that they got to watch some video of Iowa, and it seems that preparation has really paid off.
Yeah, they weren't terribly familiar with them just because they didn't play them all year, and Iowa relies so much on its young players. But as the game has progressed, Lou Burris has made the necessary adjustments to turn things around.
6-1, Fugue has dominated the scoring in this second half. Flick, end zone, and a grab deep by Peterson. She has been there when Saucy Nancy has needed her today, and it pulls Iowa back within 3.
Calvin Lund will try to rally the troops here. Momentum's an interesting thing. Oregon had scored 5 in a row. Iowa finally able to get off the schneid and get on the board with a nice deep shot to their go-to gal all game long, JoJo Peterson. 2 hands on the disc to be sure. Observers call it in. See Calvin Lund on the field, couple final instructions. Having energy on the sidelines, so important in ultimate. Even after Oregon got scored upon, The Duck sideline, Fugue sideline, still really active. Lou Burris trying to keep everybody up. Team's up by 3.
So now with a 13-10 lead for Oregon, the soft cap will go on after this possession. Fugue, a huck, end zone. We've got contact. We'll see what the call is. Going downfield for Fugue, it was Alex Odie, paired step by step with Dana Demmer.
Okay. So it's going to be your disc right here. Foul, no contest. No. What's going to happen? Yeah. Yes. All right. So when you're ready, tap it on the ground and you can walk that way.
So no contest on the foul, and Oregon will get it on the goal line, but it's not a score. Now, if they had gone to the observer, then it could have been a score. But Iowa not trying to take that route. Very close to incidental contact, but back to live action. Oregon capitalizes.
Fugue comes right back. So Sophie Darch, who's given out 7 assists, now finds herself in the end zone, putting her team within 1 point of a trip to the finals.
This has been a tremendous second half for Oregon. That's a tough throw, a tight window, and Darch just 1 step quicker. The willingness to lay the body out there. She might have been able to catch that without laying out. But the sure thing was to get there faster. On underneath throws, the importance of running through the disc, one of the first things you're taught in this game of Ultimate. If you slow down just a little bit to make the catch, it gives the defender a chance to close that space.
Evan, we just mentioned that soft cap to go on after that last score. So Oregon now up 14-10. If they score again, they win, they're on to the finals. However, if Iowa comes back to tie it at 14, it would be a game to 16.
Yes, indeed.
Oregon, the #1 seed with the poll, got to this game with a win over the University of British Columbia.
Now, they've had some experimentation with a 2-point goal, but it's not in the college game right yet. So you can only score 1 at a time, and Iowa needs to focus on just getting the 1, a downwind point right here to hold serve, and then you think about getting the break.
Every pass crucial, and a long one there goes to Peterson from Tuick. Tuick to the end zone, and a one-handed grab, Liza Minor.
Kelsey Tuick has lived up to the scouting report. Just another great deep shot. Going cross field, floating it above the defense. She knew there might be a defender there, and she knew exactly how high it needed to be to clear the leaping try. Zahnizer was so close.
She's 5'4". That was just out of her reach.
And once it gets over Zahnizer, Liza Minor, an Iowa native playing for her state school. And now it's desperation time for Saucy Nancy. This is where all those track practices and plyos made a difference. What does Iowa have left in the tank?
14-11 now, so the D-line for Saucy Nancy needs a stop. And Iowa has not scored back-to-back goals in this game. But they'll need to in order for it to continue. If Oregon scores its 15th point, the game is over.
Looks like straight man-to-man defense here from Saucy Nancy. They had a straight-up mark on Darch. Started flick, then switched around and a turnover.
Dropped at midfield by Young. So a chance now for Iowa to score back-to-back for the first time this afternoon. Right in and out of the hands of Audrey Erickson, the senior.
This is where Oregon is dangerous on transition. Iowa does a nice job of setting up its man-to-man D. Who's going to make the play?
Going deep, middle of the end zone, and the grab is made. For the third straight year, the Fugue sends Saucy Nancy home. Oregon wins at 15-11. They wanted the Huck deep all day, and that's how they win.
A great finishing touch. They've been the favorite all year. They've been the favorite all weekend, and they'll be the favorite on Memorial Day Monday in the championship game as Oregon displays what makes Fugue great in the second half to come out of this thing with a win. Iowa took a 8-7 lead into the break. It was on serve, but Sophie Darch to Morgan Zajan, one of the great combinations for the team in green, and it has them playing on Monday yet again.
The number 1 seed with a victory over the number 4 seed Iowa. And again, at the half, it was Iowa with the 8-7 advantage, but it was all Oregon in the second stanza.
Oregon's defense ratcheted up, but the defense wasn't bad in the first half. What Fugue did was tighten up the offense, which enabled it to capitalize better on its chances. And Oregon is fired up. It could be a quacktastic weekend here in Madison.
15-11, Oregon over Iowa in semifinal number 1. We're back to Madison in a moment.
Mail time, everyone. Vero, Kip, PCAP, Carl. Ooh, another one for Vero. Carl again, Sophia, Exton, Ningo, and one for accounting.
Losing your touch, Ben.
Oregon with the win here in semifinal number 1. And we are getting ready to be joined by the head coach of Fugue, Lou Burris. And we'll go down to the field to talk with Coach. First of all, congratulations on the win, Coach. You're down 8-7 at half. What was the difference for you in that second half?
Our team this year, throughout all the difficult games we've had, have always kind of found a way to win. And it's just a matter of us keeping up defensive pressure and just pushing. And we found a way to get some breaks in the second half.
Coach, what was the conversation like at halftime? It seemed that you had chances in the first half, but you couldn't capitalize. Throws were a little tighter, and you seemed a little more patient in the second half.
Yeah, the wind in the stadium's a little bit swirly, and it particularly in that upwind end zone, it's a lot windier, and we were throwing stuff into the end zone that was a bit edgy, and the wind was grabbing it and knocking it this way and that, and we really emphasized being patient and also keeping the throws flat as we're moving into that upwind end zone.
Sophie Darch, such a tremendous quarterback for your offense. Can she at times be too aggressive, or is that what you want her to do?
We're all about attack, so no.
Never too aggressive.
Never. I mean, that's our game is put the pedal down and go. And not worry about turning it over and play defense. And I mean, the delight of playing Ultimate is playing defense, and if you turn it over, you just give your chance to play more.
And you're back in the championship game again, either Carleton or Ohio State. Give us your quick 10-second snippet on each team, and I know you're not going to give us a preference, but who do you feel you match up better with?
I haven't seen Ohio State this year very much, so it's hard to say. I know in watching Carleton, they're very good offensively, which is where I think both those teams will challenge us, that both of them are possession-oriented teams, and that's going to give us a tough time.
Well, Coach Lou Burris, head coach of Oregon, a win today. Thanks so much, and we'll see you tomorrow in the finals.
Thank you.
So the Fugue with the win, and right now let's go check out the U.S. Sports Camp's Nike Sports Camp's play of the game.
The turning point was Oregon's ability to score upwind. Out of a timeout, Iowa switched their defense, came into the zone, but the flick over the top, finding Young in space, and the easy finish, the ability to change the fields with that over-the-top throw, and the leaping ability from the 5'7" junior Ashley Young. Oregon got the break, and Fugue gets the win.
A 4-goal advantage. So up next, it's Ohio State against Carleton. Seen both of these teams in earlier play. It's a tough matchup.
Both have been almost flawless this weekend. And, you know, either could give Fugue a good game tomorrow. Carleton has to be considered the favorite, coming in as the 2 seed and really not having too much trouble in pool play. But Ohio State, a program on the rise, and this could be the time where they elevate to Memorial Day Monday at Nationals.
So finally for Oregon, a little bit of turnaround time here as they get some rest before tomorrow's game.
Yeah, 2 games already today. They played at 8:30 this morning. They get the first semifinal at noon, and Fugue has a happy Sunday night, and they're getting ready for Monday.
Time to stretch it out for Fugue. The number 1 seed will advance here in Madison, Wisconsin. So Oregon wins over Iowa by a score of 15-11. And watch this entire game on replay, as well as other games on our family of ESPN networks. Log on to Watch ESPN or download the Watch ESPN app. This has been a presentation of ESPN.